is what we are calling a mega region project. And the reason for that is because it really is connecting multiple valleys, the Tri-Valley, the San Joaquin Valley, in a way that hasn't been done before for rail. Rail will now certainly extend all the way to Stockton and ultimately to Sacramento. That's why we call it a mega region type project. Right now, just to follow up on what Supervisor Haggerty said, we are creating about 6 jobs for every 1 new house in the Bay Area, in the 9-county area. So that helps to explain this tremendous economy we have, but also the tremendous commute issues and the very high housing costs that are generally common throughout the Bay Area. So we have a strong economy, that's a good thing, but it does bring along some of these other negative consequences. And you can see this mega region, so-called, has also this mega commute projection for the future is bleak. There'll be more traffic, not less, and so all of these projects that are being put forward are trying to provide some relief for all of that. And I think if you've been out there, you know, you experience it. I don't have to tell you what's happening out on the 580 corridor. So this is the basic corridor for Valley Link. It starts here, Dublin, Pleasanton, then you have Isabelle, Greenville. Those were the ones that were in the original BART proposal, although as the supervisor indicated, there was even a struggle just to get BART to Isabelle. Now, fortunately, the city of Livermore has been doing some planning around that possible station, so we're going to be able to pick up on that work that's been done and was recently reaffirmed by the City Council of Livermore, so hopefully we'll have a good building block there. From there, we go over the Altamont Pass to Mountain House, and then Tracy, downtown, and then River Islands, ultimately to North Lathrop. And there would be a potential future extension to take us up to Stockton. It would connect to the ACE train. So Valley Link and the ACE train are different. Sometimes people get those mixed up, and we can understand they're both trains. But ACE train will still be there, and it connects ultimately with the North Lathrop station, and it runs along the Altamont Pass. It will come out and connect to ACE, to the Valley Link station at Greenville, and then it will go on to Pleasanton and down further south as it does now. So that system would remain in place. You are maybe familiar with the Vasco Road stations and the downtown Livermore stations for ACE train. Those stay as is and will remain in service with Valley Link operating. But we want to make sure we have those connection points at Greenville and also at North Lathrop, so people can get back and forth on one train to the other in any of the directions. And also 41 miles long, approximately 42 or something, give or take, 7 stations. We're expecting over 25,000 daily commute rides on that system. And we will be removing a significant portion of greenhouse gas emissions by getting those people out of their individual automobiles, and then providing a seamless connection from BART and from ACE train. So at the Dublin Pleasanton station, you'll see a graphic that indicates a cross-platform seamless operation, similar to the way eBART is performing, the so-called eBART that extends from the Pittsburgh Bay Point station out to Antioch. So there's a cross-platform situation there. And the eBART technology is not the same as what's being looked at here, but similar in how it would operate. And we're expecting to have essentially an all-electric train system here. So we're looking at frequent and reliable service. So this gives you a little bit of a picture of what the operating plan is for this Valley Link service between BART, Dublin Pleasanton, and Greenville. 12 minutes during peak, and 30 minutes during off-peak would be the headways, and then beyond Greenville, 24 minutes and 60 minutes during off-peak. The estimated annual ridership in here on an annualized basis, projecting to the year 2025, 3.5 to 5 million riders, 2040, over 5 million to almost 8 million riders. So we see the value and the potential of this system. So again, a little bit of detailed here on the travel times, because I'm sure that's of interest to you. If you were to get on the train at the Greenville station, it'd be 11 minutes to Isabelle and another 9 minutes to the BART station. So 20 minutes all in all, and then you get to the seamless platform, cross-platform connection there at Dublin Pleasanton. Again, to highlight, this is a proposed ACE train transfer station at Greenville and at North Lathrop, and in the future, we hope a Stockton connection with ACE train as well. So that's how this would work. You can see going the other direction, it would be about 39 minutes to downtown Tracy over the Altamont Pass, and another 8 and then 6 minutes to North Lathrop. This is also very interesting. There is an existing Gradle Tunnel. There used to be tracks through here, and Alameda County owns that right-of-way. So that is a big asset in this case. That means we can utilize this right-of-way, and the engineers have told us that is feasible. It'll take some work to do that, but this is a big deal if you're trying to get a train to go up and down the Altamont Pass every day in every direction. So lo and behold, we have this asset. But you can imagine it needs to be shored up. It's going to need some work and regrading, and all that technology and engineering will be brought to bear. That's part of the estimated cost for the project. It says the existing structurally sound historic tunnel can be reused. We've made that determination. That's pretty critical. So why is this picture here? Because going way back to somewhere in the middle of the 1800s, the train came through. Remember, there was just a commemoration of the Golden Spike in Provo, Utah, I believe. That was it a month ago or something? I remember hearing that.
That's right.
Yeah, and so this is some kind of celebration along those lines, but this is indicating one of the old lines that came across the United States from back east, and it actually came through this corridor. So we're kind of reviving something that used to be there. So, go figure. We had the idea way back then, now we have to build it back at quite a significant cost. But I think the vision is ultimately that the Bay Area will have a regional rail network that connects all parts and connects to other parts of California, particularly the Central Valley. So that's really important. So this is another part of it, and somebody was asking me about this earlier, but the first part of Valley Link from Dublin Pleasanton to Greenville will be in the 580 median. So, and that's what the supervisor explained. We have to make some adjustments there, but Caltrans is on board. They are willing to work with us to make that happen. So that's a big agency support factor that we are relying on. From Greenville to Mountain House is that right-of-way that the Alameda County owns, which means we can use that right-of-way. We'll have more clearance right-of-way to build on that. And then from the Mountain House station to North Lathrop, we will be in the Union Pacific right-of-way. And we're working very closely with Union Pacific to make sure that they can accommodate our trains in that right-of-way. And that is the case also for ACE trains and other trains that we have in the Bay Area and Northern California, such as the Capital Corridor train, if you've heard of that. That also operates in portions of the Union Pacific right-of-way as well. So that's not an unusual condition at all. But you can see how the segments break out: 11.5, 12.5, and then 17.5 miles to get the entire 42-mile long system. Okay, so a little bit more detail then on the Livermore stations. Initially, because we're trying to get the train up and running as soon as possible, we're going to a fairly Spartan-like initial operating segment to get the train up and to have access to the train. So this is the Ysabel station parking lot that is being proposed so that we can measure the impacts of that, get that studied and cleared in the environmental impact report, and make that station operational. And you can see the station would be in the median of 580, and it would be connected to the parking lot here. And that's how people would access it there would be automobile access, at least initially. We'll say a little bit more about the stations here and how they can be made more user-friendly and so on, and that's one of the questions we have for you this evening, is to get a sense of what you would like to help make this station more active and more vital. And so you can see Isabelle Avenue here crossing 580, and here's Airway and Rutan Drive. So that gives you a sense of where it is, and we're basically using some of this land in the right-of-way of the interchange for Isabelle Avenue and 580. Now this is a diagram of the Isabelle transit-oriented development plan, which the city had been working on in the expectation that BART was going to be coming through, and the station would be more or less in that same location. So we are near business parks, industrial uses, residential neighborhoods can be formed, and you can see again, starting with the initial parking lot here, in this diagram of land uses, you'll be able to see ultimately a very transit-oriented, transit-friendly community development pattern, which should also be walkable, will promote bicycle use, and it will revolve around that transit hub. We think that's a very nice plan, and some of the staff are here, Bob Vinn and others, Steve from the planning department of Livermore can answer some questions on that. But basically, it's the plan that you've probably seen in other venues here. About 4,000 new multifamily housing units will be included, along with the offices, businesses, and commercial development as well. Then when we get to the Greenville station, we have some tough engineering issues to grapple with there, and basically will be primarily a transfer station, so you can come along Ultimate Pass Road, access the parking lot, and then there'll be a platform there to get onto Valley Link, and also some platform connections to get onto the ACE train, which you can see running down in this purple line here. It crosses the, goes underneath the freeway overpasses, and there'll be these connection points to both the ACE train and also to the Valley Link at the Greenville station. So pretty simple organization plan. We have some of the engineers here can answer questions you might have about that. So that's an interesting one as well. This gives you a close-in picture of the Dublin-Pleasanton transfer point, and the way in which we would achieve transfer to ACE train. So it's very similar type of situation where you can see like a BART car here, you would be a BART car here, and then our Valley Link train car here, and essentially you would be able to get off of one and walk across to the other and keep going. And you would do that in reverse. So the idea being that we maintain that ease of access is maybe not much different than the transfer from the E-BART up in northern Contra Costa County to the Pittsburgh Bay Point station, or I was thinking of the MacArthur BART station where you go from one BART train to another and it's basically cross-platform that allows for that easy transfer. You can see here the 580 westbound lane and the 580 eastbound lane. So it just gives you some idea of how this cross-section fits within the median of the 580 freeway system. This is another question we wanted to ask you, and staff of the City of Livermore have been looking at this, and a new proposal surface. It's not by any means final, it's really just a study concept at this point, but there is potentially a south front infill station at some point in the future that Valley Link could look at to increase the number of stations accessible to Livermore area residents and businesses. So here we are essentially right along, what is this, McGraw Avenue. So it's just a little bit east of there. And you can see again in the 580 interstate, the Valley Link station platform would be located in the median, served by a parking lot just immediately to the south side, This is some storage areas for mobile office units, mobile classrooms. And they store large numbers of these in this area just to the south, and this is proposed as a possible parking lot, station, and access to a station platform for Valley Link in the median. So that's just something that's being looked at, but with nothing firm on the table at this point. So we'd love to get your thoughts about it. The other thing very important to our supervisor and to the entire Valley Link board is this idea of a sustainable transportation system. And this should be a model for the state and for the nation in the sense that we're looking at all dimensions of sustainability, green design, however you want to define it. And that has to do with the design, the construction, and how the system operates. And what better place to do that than right here with the Altamont Pass. The windmills are symbols of that renewable energy future that a lot of people are striving for. And we can utilize not only the fact that we do have significant wind resources, but also solar access and the ability to perhaps make this Valley Link system a net zero system in terms of its energy use, meaning it could acquire enough renewable energy through these different systems, enough to offset the energy that it uses. So that's the goal, that's the target. And the way to do that again would be to, again, using renewable energy sources, building an infrastructure to do that in the course of the system development, connecting with our rail and transit operations, as I said, the mega region rail system, promoting more use of what's called active transportation, namely public transit, bicycle, walking, pedestrian, using zero emission vehicles, using electric vehicles, having charging stations, having bicycles, and making it easy for people of all incomes to use the system. So we are looking for sustainability in terms of the social, economic, cultural aspects of the system. And there's a huge push to make these stations very friendly, very accessible, walkable, and bicycle and public transit friendly. So these are very serious goals that are put forward by the authority board, and we hope to put that through in these different categories, including stormwater management and percolation and use of materials that will also draw less on the greenhouse gas production and just how they're made and how they're applied to the design of the system. So you can see some of these different elements. And by the way, we'll have the whole slideshow up on the website for those of you who would like to access any of these images and make copies and share them with your friends and family so we can get more of the information out there, more of the words. So with that, we're going to get the lights back on and really like to make the rest of this more of a dialogue and interaction and get some of your thoughts about the system. Because we're still designing this system. There's still an opportunity to influence how this thing is going to work. So that's the reason for the meeting tonight, that getting to and from the station is one of our top questions, and you may have some ideas about that, and so we're open to any and all thoughts. And we'll start with this gentleman, and again, if you don't mind, we'll keep this moving, try to get as many people in the conversation as possible, and we'll see what happens. Yes, sir.
In your presentation, you indicated about the housing that Livermore has accommodated on the north side of the 580 corridor.
For the Ysabel station,
right,
as a
Ysabel
plan,
station.
yeah.
You showed access to the Valley Link on the south side. How did the people on the north side get across 580 with all the traffic to the
Good question. All right, maybe Bob is in a good position to answer. This is Bob Vinn, who's the city's public works engineer, and he worked on this plan.
So what you saw was a preliminary concept, 15% design level for the Isabelle station. Livermore staff reviewed and commented, and we asked the Valley Link team to add a pedestrian bridge to the north side to serve the housing and businesses up there.
Okay, yes, thank you, yes.
So in one of your slides, you showed 6 jobs for every 1 house built in the greater 9-county area. Why can't we assess the companies that are creating those jobs to help pay for some of these improvements?
I like your idea. You know, I've thought about this a lot too, like as an urban planner. The people that are generating these
Problems.
are kind of getting a free ride off of the Bay Area, right? And so, you know, Google, first of all, if they put more jobs in the same place where they are, it just makes it worse. It doesn't make it better. If they were more distributed, it would be better too. But I think there has to be some partnership with private business and industry. Yeah, you know, we'll leave that to our elected officials to try to craft those sort of policies. I mean, we have to do something to offset those so-called externalities. You know, that's what economists call when the person that creates the cost doesn't pay for the cost.
Does the NPC board chair have an idea about that?
It's a burden shift.
So, look, I really don't want to start doing this, but I would say this, that over in the peninsula, Google put in, I believe, $100 million to build an express lane similar to what we have on the 580 corridor on the 101. And I can also tell you, and this is somewhat problematic for me, because if they get too much steam, they could jump ahead of us, and I'm trying everything I can to make sure that does not happen. But Facebook is working with the Dunbar Rail people to build from the peninsula side into the Fremont area, also up into the city. So Facebook has put up a substantial amount of money to see that project get done. Look, I was involved in the building of the Bay Bridge. Anytime you go over water, it's really difficult and it gets really expensive. And the bridge that they're planning on using right now, which is the old Dunbar Rail Bridge, I don't think that would be a very good commuter rail bridge. So I think they have some hurdles to overcome. But I just wanted to point out that the private sector is starting to realize that they need to do something. And in fact, I would point out to you that in the last election, Mark Benioff and some others were, the guy from Salesforce, were very much behind a tax on businesses over a certain amount in the city of San Francisco, and it failed. So they were out supporting it. And they were going to give some of their money. They said they should be taxed, and the voters didn't vote for it. They turned it down.
So there are those thoughts out there, and I think you bring up a very good, very important topic. Yes, sir.
If you build it, they will come. So I notice you have a single track. You're gonna have 25,000 riders going in one direction. How do you plan to go in the alternate direction during the day when you've got all the commuters coming in on one track?
Right. So we have some engineers to help us with that, but Ryan, you want to, well, this is Ryan from AECOM. They're the engineering design firm that's been hired to lay this whole system out. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with ACE, that's one direction only in the morning and in the afternoon. Valley Link would be bidirectional, so service in both directions, and you're right. You know, how do we do that with one track? Well, that's the way that we do that is with passing sidings. So the trains will always be meeting at the same location, and in those locations, we actually have 2 tracks. So and then also at stations, there'll be a center platform with a track on each side typically. So at those locations, the trains can pass each other.
So, and again, I didn't do this, but I also sit on the ACE board. And
We have all boards covered.
I hope you heard. Well, I know my family wishes I'd give a few boards up, but I don't know if you heard this or understood this. But when we talked about our frequency, it was between 12 and 15 minutes and 30 minutes in non-peak time. So we can run every 12 to 15 minutes during peak time. ACE can only run 4 times a day. And the reason for that is we own the tracks we're going to run on. ACE does not, so they have to negotiate with UP. It's extremely expensive to get operating rights off UP, and they will probably, I'll know that ACE is continually trying to get more frequency, but it's gonna come at a very large price, and we can offer the frequency that commuters are looking for. Now I'm gonna sit down.
Yeah,
Did
that's,
you say that past Mountain or past Tracy you have to share with UP?
It's as I understand that
Yeah.
track, it's for an olive crushing plant. Is it an olive crushing?
Moose olive.
Yeah, it's an olive crush plant, and they only operate the train I think 1 or 2 times twice a month. So we don't anticipate a huge problem. I will say this, that Tracy Beyond is going to have to negotiate some trackage rights with UP. I'm concerned about the Alameda County side, and we're on our track. Okay?
yeah. Okay, in the back, please.
What is your cost per mile?
Cost per mile, let's see, who has the answer to that?
Divide 1.8 billion by 41 miles.
42 miles?
It's a lot cheaper than BART.
Well, it's 1.8 billion for 42 miles.
Okay, that, and the answer is?
Wait a minute, I mean, not all miles are the same, so that's
46, about 46 million.
Yeah. Okay, you say about 46, good. Let's see, another hand up, yeah, back there, we'll get different people first, and then we'll come back around. Yes,
Okay, so my day usually starts at 3:45 in the morning when I get up. So I saw online that you guys are thinking about starting at service at 5 in the morning. Right now, BART, with the exception of upgrading the Transbay tube, they start at 4:58, but essentially their first train usually leaves at 4:13 in the morning. Do you guys foresee being able to service trains that early, that would be able to make it to Dublin, Pleasanton, BART by 4:13 in the morning, so that they can catch that train and head to San Francisco?
do we have the details on the operating plan yet, Brian?
Yes, so, we have, we're looking at an initial service.
Okay, we would like to maybe come on up here.
Sure.
So they can
Hard to hear.
hear you. Yeah, thanks.
So yes, we're looking at an initial service that would be starting at 5. And then as the service ramps up, we're anticipating matching more of BART's schedule so that you'll be able to board, the first Valley Link train could bring you to the first BART train. But we don't see that on opening day when the service first starts, but the idea is to, at a future time, to expand the service to match BART's expanded service.
Well, and let's note that as a desire, a request, that we would do that for obvious benefits and reasons, like you say. Yes, sir.
On one of your slides, you had smart parking. What is smart parking?
Well, smart parking would involve technology that keeps track of the number of vacant spaces and registers the number. So when you enter the parking lot, it might say 100 spaces, and it would also potentially direct you to where those spaces are vacant. And then when you occupied them, it would turn red, and you would no longer have, the system automatically reacts to that. That's the notion. The other is that it would actually send that information to your automobile GPS or your smartphone. So that technology exists.
And you're anticipating some parking fee?
I don't think that's been decided yet, the policies for how parking is gonna be managed, but do you have anything to add to it?
We are assuming a parking fee probably in the neighborhood of what BART's charging in that parking.
Okay, okay, very good. Yes, ma'am.
Just from your description, it appears that there's currently not enough space at the Pleasanton station for the Valley Link car to come in, as well as how are you going to allocate the freeway or change the freeway such that you have space for the Valley Link track and perhaps 2 tracks at the Ysabel station, as well as expand at the Pleasanton?
Let's see, Ryan, do you want
Sure.
to answer this, please?
So we can take a look at the diagram over here where we have Dublin Pleasanton stations. So what's outlined here in white is the existing condition, and then here in the shaded, that's what it would be added on. And as you today that's not there today. We have freeway lanes there.
Right.
So we need to move out the lanes. So there will be some right-of-way that needs to be acquired on the north side there, where we would actually move the lanes out and create the space here to add in the Valley Link track. And then at Ysabel Station, similar situation where the width that we need, we would create by pushing out the freeway lanes to create the right-of-way that we need. So as we've worked in the 580 corridor, we've tried to minimize all the locations where we need to bump out a little bit. And there are some property impacts, but there are few of them.
But isn't there is no median strip right now on 580 around the Isabelle station, so that whole area is going to have to get bumped out just to put the track.
Yes, and we have detailed drawings that will show how that works, and we can provide those to those who are interested in seeing how that will work.
Again?
If I could just add to that, it's the same thing we would have needed to do for the BART extension to Livermore, but because it's a narrower track and we're single tracking, we have to do less of it.
Good, okay. Let's see, people, there was someone in the back, anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. That looks like quite a distance from the parking lot to the station. Is there any estimate of how far that is?
Yeah, good question. So, Ryan, and are there gonna be any kind of, people mover or accelerator ramp there?
So I don't know the exact number, a few hundred feet. Yeah, that is if that's a concern of people, we can make a note of that as to, is the distance too big, or is there an issue with that? But this is a kind of a typical situation when you have a platform in the middle of a freeway connecting to a parking.
So it's about the same walk as the Dublin station that we had, the recent station, and that's the parking garage, and then you gotta walk across the freeway across Sidings.
There's something similar at Antioch.
Okay, let's see, any other questions or comments? And don't forget, we are looking for your ideas too as to what you would like to see in the system. Yes, ma'am. Wait. Hold on. Okay, so go ahead.
It disturbs me that in your rhetoric to describe the Isabelle area, you're assuming that we're going to do this very unpopular, heavy development that was insisted upon by BART. And our council said, if BART doesn't come, we're not doing it. But recently, I believe the council said, okay, we'll do the EIR. But I don't believe the council approved that. And I also think that if more people knew about this meeting, which was not very well publicized in my view, that once they realize you're going to try to pull that off, it's going to be very unpopular. My suggestion is that you move some of it over to Greenville, because this is too much right near the airport.
Okay.
And that's my suggestion, and I'm very concerned about that. And I know BART owns a lot of property over by Greenville, so maybe you can make a deal and put some of your development over there, because some of it was planned to go there, and it got all pushed over here because of BART.
Okay.
And BART is a four-letter word in my view, so
understood.
That's my point.
Okay, very good one, Bob. To add some to that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Back in April, the city council directed staff to update the environmental impact report and return back to the council for their consideration. That will happen sometime in early 2020, but as of today, nothing is approved regarding the Isabelle plan.
Thank you, I thought so.
And we'll make note of the idea of maybe distributing the growth, as you said, or the possible new development between the two. Yes, sir.
So every time you sidetrack on a single track, you lose time. So how many times do you envision each run to have to sidetrack, and how is that going to affect the time frame?
Okay. So, and I believe the time estimates we showed you take that issue into account. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, so the question is, aren't we gonna lose a little travel time with having to make these meets so the trains can pass each other? And the answer is yes, there is some loss in travel time, but what we're offering is a reliable service that's gonna provide the same travel time every time, unlike the freeway where you don't know how long it's gonna take you. And then we're also going to be able to deliver Valley Link for a much lower cost using a single track system rather than with a double track like BART would have been.
Will the train be able to stay on schedule so that you
Yes.
make the BART train?
Yes.
Okay. Good, thank you, Ryan. Go ahead, sir.
Will the right-of-way acquisitions be planned so that you could double track and speed?
Interesting question. Okay.
That's not in the current plan.
All right. Well, I guess you're optimistic we're going to get a big impact. People are going to want to ride it. We're going to want to increase the service. Did you have a follow-up?
Most people, we didn't hear the question over
Oh, sorry. The question was, will the widening of the freeway permit future double tracking for the Valley Link system? That was the question. Okay. So go ahead. You had a follow-up?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm 93 years old and my hearing aid doesn't work too well. I may not, and you may have answered already. Will there be a way of collecting the BART fares at the Isabelle station? The direct cross platform. I can visualize it. We've got to have collect the BART fares and there'll be a
Double Pleasanton. Yeah.
also, at the Isabelle, the park and ride.
Right. So the question is, will we be able to collect BART fares at both the Isabelle and Dublin Pleasanton stations, right? Is that your, yeah.
At the Isabelle station, there's a park and ride, airway park and ride, which would be enlarged. Could you get that enlarged, get the parking lot right away and have a shuttle bus between there and the station between now and 2025, when I'm 99 years old. So we could go from Livermore to Isabelle to the, have a shuttle direct bus. The Alameda County Transportation Commission, in their integrated study, has estimated that the cost of increasing that Isabelle Park and Ride to 500 spaces would be about $3 million, which is dirt cheap. And could you get that early? So that we have a parker, have the station parking and develop ridership.
With a shuttle bus connection to the Dublin Pleasanton station?
Until the time when the train runs.
I see. Move this ahead so Livermore people can already start to use it and improve the access to BART that way. That's an interesting idea, great concept.
Got the foot in the door too.
Yeah. Get it started. Go ahead.
There's a possibility of a bicycle path under the freeway at Isabelle Creek. That's a creek.
Right here.
And if that could be, I guess that, the walkway, because keep people off, pedestrians off Isabelle itself, have them for the housing there.
Great. Did you have a comment on that, or?
Yeah, the bicycle path here is considered part of the Isabelle plan if that gets adopted. We also, with the BART project, work with BART to get the pedestrian connection to not need to go through the paved part. And that would be great if we could do that with Valley Link, where this bridge actually could be a pedestrian crossing itself.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, ideas? Also, go ahead, Ann.
Just a question about the fare structure you're envisioning. Is it going to be for how long, the distance that you're going to be riding? and how will it work if you're gonna make the switch over to BART and,
Yeah.
and continue on BART.
Do we have a fair model concept, Brian?
So we have some ideas about how that would work, but ultimately that's a policy decision that the authority board will have to work on as the project takes shape. But the assumption is that it would be similar to BART in that you pay according to how far your trip is, how long your trip is.
And you anticipate that I'd use my Clipper card in Tracy, and then I could just continue seamlessly on the BART, or would I then have to pay?
Yes, so the model is kind of like the SMART train, if you're all familiar with the SMART train in Sonoma and Marin counties, which is, Valley Link would be similar to SMART, and they've adopted a Clipper card only, so in order to ride SMART, you need to have a Clipper card, and then that makes it simple and easy to use. So I think that's a great model that ultimately the board will be working out those issues.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, yes.
I guess I got a question for Bob then, I think.
Okay.
But, since the first station will be at Greenville, will there be a lot of development, a lot of housing development in that, near that station? And does Livermore, is that near the urban growth boundary?
Yes, so if you could put the Greenville station on. So the urban growth boundary, let's see, where are we? Here's Greenville. This property right here is within the urban growth boundary, and it ends about right there. This property is outside of the urban growth boundary. So doing a land development plan around this station is going to be challenging. So we're viewing this as more of a transfer station to ACE and less of a transit-oriented development station. However, that being said, that's just kind of staff's thought. The city council has not directed us yet to look at planning around this station. I anticipate that in the future, we will get that direction and we will start some effort, but it's, to put housing out here will be difficult.
Okay. Yes.
Who's the secret lead agency and where are you at with the preparation of the environmental documents?
Okay. Ryan, on the CEQA question, California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Okay.
Yeah, so the agency is the Tri-Valley San Joaquin Valley Regional Rail Authority, and we are working to complete that. So we as consultants are consultants to the authority. We're working on completing that next month. So we're getting very close to having that finished.
So the release of the EIR is next month?
That's the plan.
Okay. All right. And yes, sir.
Oh, how does that compare to the alignment for the high-speed rail?
You mean in terms of time to produce it?
Well, I know the high-speed rail EIR is supposed to be released in December, but I'm just curious as to where the alignments are and if they're, close to each other and how that affects one project to the other if you're running multiple rails through.
Okay.
Just real quick. Yeah, so the question is, how does Valley Link relate to high-speed rail? So high-speed rail, the current iteration will not reach as far north as Valley Link is, but as high-speed rail is implemented, the idea would be that you could have a transfer to the ACE system, and then at North Lathrop is the planned transfer from ACE to Valley Link. So, or at Greenville. So just a quick answer to your question, there's quite a big gap between the current high-speed rail alignment and Valley Link. But we're working with our partner agencies to close that gap.